Hey guys, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN, so make sure to stick around at the end of the video to find out how you can get 3 months for free on your next order. The whole remake trend in gaming over the last few years is something that's gained a lot of notoriety, and there's been some pretty heated discussions on this, on whether or not it's just the kind of thing that's even necessary. And recent titles like The Last of Us Part 1 and even the leaked news of an apparent upcoming Horizon Zero Dawn remake have really put this whole thing into question. I think the first good example of this was the Resident Evil remake, later remastered, which is considered one of the best remakes of all time. And not only did it update the way the game looks in a pretty profound way, but it also improved a lot of the core mechanics. The movement controls were smoother, it introduced new enemies, it introduced new puzzles, and it also had new routes through the mansion to circumvent a lot of needless backtracking. It's a perfect example of how to update an older game for a modern audience, and the other sequels, RE2 and RE3, also pulled this off, I think, to an equal and lesser effect. Also consider that there's only a 6-year difference between the original and that first remake, which makes it even look more astounding. It was something that was just perfect for being remade and allowed people to understand why the original was so well loved, and also made it much more accessible to be played for the first time. In recent years, there's been a slew of other remakes as well, all doing a great job at keeping the feel of the original, but just updating the way they look and play to make them appeal to a more modern demographic. Games like Crash Bandicoot, Medieval, Spyro the Dragon, and even Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Not to mention, in the upcoming months and years, there's a Dead Space remake, along with Resident Evil 4, and even Max Payne of all things. On the indie side of things, you've got a game like Black Mesa, a monumental project by Crowbar Collective to recreate the original Half-Life in its entirety in the Source engine, redesigning the game from beginning to end. So it's no surprise then that there's a lot of interest in this whole remake trend, and if you go looking through YouTube, it's not hard to find plenty of these fan-made remakes for a bunch of games that I think we all grew up playing, some of course looking better than others.
No thanks, bro.
GoldenEye Source is a really cool looking recreation of the iconic Shooters multiplayer mode that's been carried over into the Source engine. There's also a bunch for Resident Evil and Silent Hill, the latter which honestly might be one of the hardest games to remake due to its whole unique premise and aesthetic.
What's going on here?
Love it or hate it, you've got to admit that Silent Hill is visually one of the most unique looking series of all time. There's always been something unsettling about the vibe in these games, you know, being one of the only people alive in this empty, eerie town that's overrun by monsters, combined with the art style of that hellish otherworld. It's really just one of the best horror aesthetics of all time, and trying to replicate it is like trying to copy Salvador Dali or Vincent van Gogh.
What the hell is it?
Either way though, even if some of these remakes look kinda crappy, they still appear to be playable and they've clearly had some kind of effort put into them. Which kinda brings me onto the point of my video, and that's this weird trend I've seen on YouTube at the moment with these Unreal Engine 5 remake trailers, and the channel responsible for pumping these out the most for quick and easy views. Now look, I'm not saying that people should go out there and insult these guys or send out hateful comments, but I mean look, I think if you're uploading to YouTube and making your content available for public scrutiny, well then criticism is perfectly valid. Because you see, as opposed to some of these other games which look like genuine works in progress, these Unreal Engine 5 videos are just more like 3D slideshows, which all seem to rely on keywords and obnoxious titles to capture people's attention. I mean, take one look at the uploads and the first thing you notice is that Sony logo in the corner of almost every single thumbnail, which is the first of many ways that this account tries to lure people in as if it's showing off some kind of official release. And you know what, I probably wouldn't have an issue with this if these were well done, but they often just show a complete lack of faithfulness to the source material, not to mention they're always full of errors and inaccuracies. For starters, I mean, let's just look at their Silent Hill trailers. No, God! Now, anyone who's played these games knows they're set in a fictional American town. In fact, one of the main inspirations for the first game was David Lynch's Twin Peaks, which was shot in Washington. I think Silent Hill's supposed to be based off either Oregon or Pennsylvania, but either way, I'm pretty damn sure it's not based off Eastern Europe. And I mean, check these environments out, right? Kind of feel like I should be sneaking through here with Lieutenant Price and Captain McMillan.
That's how it's done. Let's go.
It might even actually be a map set in Chernobyl, because when it shows inside of a school, you can even see a radiation sticker on the wall. 50,000 people used to live here. Now it's an asset flip ghost town.
Never seen anything like it.
The car that Harry's driving at the start here looks like it's a Mercedes knockoff, and yeah, look, I know you can get Mercedes in the US, but again, clearly not the same car that he drives in the original game. And it just kind of shows how they're settling with whatever assets they could find in the map itself.
Oh my god. Where have you gone?
I've actually been playing through Silent Hill on the PlayStation recently, you know, pretty much just for funsies. But it kind of astounded me how, even though the game is now as old as it is, that it still really holds up when it comes to that overall atmosphere and the art style. It's low resolution, it's pixelated, and it's dithered to hell, but there's an undeniable sense of dread and hopelessness that you feel in the world here, a lot of which comes from the art style and the sound design. And that's something that's going to be really hard to replicate, you know, especially when all your assets just come from the Unreal Engine marketplace. And that's really the most common theme you're going to be seeing with all of these videos, man. It's just always like the least amount of effort that's been put into them. Just looks like a bunch of lazy asset flips, using environments and characters that just happen to vaguely resemble what they're based off. And can I just point out too, how these guys misspelt their own channel name in their own video. In some instances, the models they've used are just straight out rips. Like with the Silent Hill video, for some reason they've just got Laura from Silent Hill 2 there. I mean, she wasn't even in the first game, and on top of that, it's not even an updated model. You can obviously tell they've just ripped the model from the PC version. Huh? Remember how Silent Hill also took place in broad daylight with giant god rays shining through the windows? Oh, what's that, you don't? Yeah, me neither. Yeah, and how about all those skinless zombies you had to fight in the first game too? Remember those things? That's actually kind of insulting too. Silent Hill 1 had some of the most horrific enemies of all time. You had those gnarly demon kids in the school, you had giant cockroaches, nightmare fuel moss, and then those awful abominations in the sewers. I mean, some of these monsters live rent-free in my head, you know, even decades later. Now, I don't know if this channel perpetuated the rumors about there being a Silent Hill 2 remake leak, or if their video was to blame for the whole thing, but either way, it seemed around the same time news about the remake was buzzing, they just happened to release a video for the sequel. And yeah, it's more of the same, you know, just the back of James's head, along with some more scenic shots of these generic European looking environments. In fact, I think they've even just used the same school from the first video. You've got Laura again standing around doing nothing, you've got the same looking zombies, and then it all ends with Pyramid Head rising up ominously, and apparently now this guy's like 10 feet tall, because yeah, remember in the second game how this guy was twice James's height? And of course, it all cuts to black before anything remotely exciting ever happens. That too is also a big theme you're going to see in all of these videos, is the trailer ending as soon as something is about to actually happen. Something that would resemble actual gameplay and something that would actually take time and effort to showcase. Along with walking, lots of walking. I mean, honestly, man, it's like every single video is just someone walking slowly with their back to the camera. Often toward like another NPC off in the distance who is almost always just standing still and doing nothing. Whenever a character's walking around, the in-game map or the radar or whatever you want to call it doesn't move either, it's completely static. And if I'm being even more critical, in this one here, it doesn't even accurately show where in the city the character is. I mean, look, right, Venom is clearly walking around near the harbour, but then when you look on the map, you can see that he's nowhere near the water. You know, they probably could have gone into the game and somehow recreated this to make it look like a more accurate map screen, but you know what? That's probably too much effort, right? And I get that these videos are called concept trailers, but I mean, what's the concept here? That you just spend entire games walking around slowly? They recently put up a video for a Hulk game, and you know, you'd kind of expect to see Hulk smashing stuff, right? I mean, that's basically the guy's whole modus operandi.
And Hulk. Smash.
Only instead of that, we just get like 90 seconds of the guy walking around an empty city, pretty much doing nothing. I'm actually kind of amazed that they put in the effort to add in this ground slam. But that's about as exciting as it gets, because once again, the whole thing ends before anything even happens. Yeah, I love too how all these civilians are standing still while there's this 8-foot tall green monster charging down the middle of the street. yes, I know it's just supposed to be a concept video, but isn't the point of a concept video to show the fucking concept?
He ain't lying.
In the Iron Man video, it's the same thing, seeing Tony charging towards a static Mark 1 suit, which happens to be A-posing by the way. And can I also point out too how dumb it is to see Iron Man running? Yeah, the guy who wears an armored flight suit, known for being able to reach speeds of Mark 8, is going to be jogging the whole thing out instead. I don't think so.
He just went supersonic.
One thing I noticed too is that these videos prey on the popularity of recent gaming events. I mean, for instance, as soon as a new Assassin's Creed game was announced, lo and behold, they also put up their own video for Assassin's Creed. Seemed around the same time that GTA 6 news was leaked, there was a GTA 6 video. House of the Dragon recently started, so of course they put up one about Game of Thrones. And you think there's a coincidence too that there's a Hulk video, you know, around the same time that She-Hulk happens to be trending, even though that thing's trending for the wrong reasons. More than that though, they also seem to try to be baiting people's nostalgia for these older game franchises, especially those that fans have been clamoring for. So you've got Grand Theft Auto, obviously, Call of Duty, Resident Evil, and even poor Half-Life 2 gets the so-called remake treatment as well. There's one for San Andreas recreating that iconic drive-thru scene, only they're very clearly not even in a drive-thru, they're just parked outside a random building. Ryder's hat looks like a baseball helmet. I don't even know what's going on with Sweet's torso. It's not even a San Andreas license plate, and it's all topped off with a floating lamppost that's clipping through a goddamn blind. Oh, and the pizza sign is clipping through the garbage bin. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, Smoke's glasses clip through the side of his head.
Unlike you, I ain't never ate from a trash.
Oh shit, trash can fit.
Bully, for instance, has always been a massive cult favourite amongst Rockstar fans, so of course there's a video on that one, where Jimmy now looks like a balding, middle-aged man, and believe me, I know what that looks like. I see one every day now when I look in the mirror. This one too is also full of stuff-ups. Like, I love how you can see the word preview on the footpath. I don't know, I guess you didn't have time to paint over that. The school bus has what looks like Thai or like Indonesian characters on the side there, you know, despite the game being set in the US. I don't know what's going on with this guy's hair either. And the supposed school building literally says police station on the front of it.
Who's the man?
Scarface The World Is Yours, which I did a video on recently too, is another huge cult favorite and one of the most underappreciated open world games of all time. Even I was actually kind of shocked about the response I got when I did a review for this thing, because it turns out that it actually has a much bigger fan base than I realised. And it's one of those games that came out on the cusp of the 5th and the 6th console generation. And I'd argue that 5th gen games here are the ones that benefit the most from these remakes. You know, aside from being the ones that most people seem to want to see.
What is your problem?
So it kind of proves my point that these guys know what they're doing. They're not just picking games at random to work on, they're very clearly trying to tap into that nostalgic element amongst the games they focus on, and zeroing in on the titles they think are going to get the most views.
I don't have all day either, baby, you know?
For this Scarface one, Dollar Store Tony Montana just sits around his desk half the time, eventually showing off some of the worst lip syncing I think I've ever seen.
Shut up! You thought you could take me? No! No one takes Tony Montana down for me!
And check this out too, man. During this shot, they forgot to remove the torso from that chair in the background, so you've just got this headless body sitting there. And that is, yet again, another recurring theme throughout all of these, is a character standing still in one place while dialogue from the movie, the game, or the TV show it's based off is played over the top of this so-called gameplay. And I think the reason too why they need this dialogue is because that's the only way you know what character you're supposed to be looking at. The model is so vague that it's impossible to tell otherwise. I mean, thank God, man, he put some dialogue from Hank in this bit during the Breaking Bad video, or I'd have no idea who the hell he was supposed to be. And why does Walt look like what had happened if someone put their ballsack in a deep fryer? You can only tell it's supposed to be Gordon Freeman in the Half-Life 2 video just by the fact of how popular that character is. G-Man, on the other hand, looks like he's about to tell me to take a seat while he goes through my internet chat history.
The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference.
Take a seat right over there.
Whenever you see a car driving around in any of these videos, you can really clearly tell that the car is just sliding forward, you know, as opposed to actually being a vehicle that someone's interacting with. The wheels, for instance, aren't even spinning, and I guess these also take place in the future when we've got those brand new self-driving vehicles. Because unless my eyes are playing tricks on me, there's no one behind the wheel of any of these cars. These Need for Speed videos also look like something from the PS3 or the Xbox 360 era, and while I haven't played any of these games in a while now, I think the last one I played was Most Wanted, pretty sure they've advanced past looking this crappy. And I'm pretty sure too the new games don't have static speedometers. And I mean, I thought that was the whole point of these remake trailers to begin with, you know, to show the game looking better than before. The Max Payne video shows off all of these subway environments, which admittedly are accurate to the original, only I think the subway levels in the darkness back on the Xbox 360 look better than this. Honestly, I think the subway levels in the original game look better than this too. And again, look, another environment that's got preview text plastered on the wall. The Half-Life 2 video has a crowbar that easily looks worse than the one in actual Half-Life 2. Along with this awful depth of field effect, depth of field being one of the most misused visual effects when people want to make something look more realistic, usually by someone who has no idea what focal length or aperture is and just thinks that blurring something out makes it look better. The same people who throw lens flares, ambient occlusion, and reflections onto the screen like they're flinging turds at a window. And check it out, another HUD that makes no sense. I mean, can someone tell me why he has an ammo supply for the crowbar and the gravity gun? If nothing else, at least these European environments actually make sense now because City 17 was meant to be set somewhere in Europe. I guess that old saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day rings true.
Gee, thanks.
No, they instantly fuck it up again with yet again more static models. This time it's a bunch of striders just standing around in a field like they've been logged out and gone into sleeping mode. Because I guess actually animating something would require skill, you know, as opposed to just copy pasting the same asset 3 times and then calling it a day.
Oh shit, trash can bitch.
Now look, I could spend hours going through all of these and ripping them all apart because it really is that easy to do, but I just want to highlight one more, and that's the one for Call of Duty 2, which not only shows off how pointless visual remakes often are, but also the ignorance of the people who think these are genuine games in development. Right, so this one's obviously based off Call of Duty 2, which in my opinion has one of the best COD campaigns of all time, and it might be a dated looking game by today's standards, but its visual design is kind of timeless in the way that the environments were thrown together to always direct your eyes to the spot you needed to look and go next. The opening mission in Russia has a sequence where you've got to fight back against a frontal assault from the Germans, and the placement of buildings on the side here is done in a way so you're forced to look ahead, along with a giant smoke screen and a battle cry which directs your gaze. Later on, when you blow up this giant building where the surviving Germans are hunkered down, the juxtaposition of this monolith in the background draws your eye, so when it finally explodes, it's impossible to not look at it. But apparently all a remake is just throwing a bunch of new buildings and props in front of the player to make the image much more cluttered and visually noisy. And look, if there's a better example of proving that more does not always mean better, well, I'd love to see it. More than that though, according to the comments on this video, this is something worth praising. That's definitely a big thing that pissed me off a lot about these videos was not only the content itself, but also the people commenting on it, who not only didn't seem to realise that these aren't games in development, but also seemed to praise this as if they weren't utterly terrible. You know what too? I feel sorry for folks in game dev who have to see this crap as well. Reading through the comments on these videos, if you're someone who's working in the industry, has to be likened to waterboarding. But then what I get even more annoyed by is all the gaming sites that are promoting this stuff. I mean, look man, I know that no one takes most gaming journalism seriously anymore, and if there was such a thing as wasting the internet, well then these kind of articles would be the main offenders. But still, more positive coverage is not what this stuff deserves. NANI? And to the people who ask me why I'm being so critical, I mean look man, I'll look at it this way. If someone on YouTube makes a crappy video, especially video game reviewers, well then there's never going to be any shortage of people making rebuttals to criticize them, is there? I'm speaking from experience, right? I've been on the receiving end of that many times. And I mean, besides that, my video might be the only way to get criticism out there because as far as I can tell, these guys are deleting negative comments. I mean, their latest video had about 40k views the last time I checked it, with only 48 comments, all of them being positive. There is a huge difference between a toxic comment and a constructive one, but deleting every single one of them regardless, and living inside this echo chamber where you're told how amazing you are is the peak of delusion. The great thing about YouTube is that people can interact with the content creator and share their thoughts openly, whether they be positive or sometimes negative. Not only is it a byproduct of having the balls to share your creative output with complete strangers, but then on the flip side, it holds you accountable when you fuck up. I really hope this channel can somehow improve, but when they seem to have their fingers in their ears when it comes to feedback, and can get over 1 million views on a video in 11 days, the same video where they left the word HUD on the HUD itself, well, I don't think that's likely. Hope this video just hasn't put remakes in a bad light though, and there's still plenty of good stuff going on there at the moment which is worthy of recognition. Night Dive Studios, for instance, have been working on their System Shock remake for like a dog's age now, that actual people are working on that actually looks fun. God only knows though when we can actually play it. I just hope this era of being impressed by cookie cutter Unreal Engine 5 concept trailers becomes a thing of the past, sooner rather than later. But I guess if not, well, at least there's an opportunity there for a follow-up video.
Oh shit, trash can bitch.
Pass me my food.
Right, so thanks for sticking around, and let me take some time to thank ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. I've been using ExpressVPN for a while now, I think about 2 years at this point, and I think in this day and age, if you're on the internet, there's no reason to not have a VPN. What is a VPN though? Well, I'm so glad you asked. What it stands for is a virtual private network, and what this thing does is reroute all of your data through a secure encrypted server so that people can't get access to all your sensitive information. It's really good for stuff like torrenting if you want to keep your activity hidden from your ISP, but what I've been using it for the most is on sites like Netflix. A good example is that I've really wanted to rewatch The Walking Dead recently, but for some reason Australia doesn't have it. So what I did instead was change my location to Tokyo, and yeah, there it is, I could start to rewatch it. You know, right up until the current seasons anyway, when it ironically becomes unwatchable because just of how awful it is. The good thing too is that it doesn't seem to affect your connection speed, which is pretty important if you live in a third world country like Australia. Getting connected is literally just as easy as clicking that connect button and you're good to go, but if you don't believe me, well, in which case I wonder why you're still watching, well, then there's still plenty of positive reviews out there from actual users, along with bigger sites like TechRadar and CNET. I've never had any dramas getting the whole thing working, but on the off chance that you do, they also have a really good 24/7 support line to help you sort out any dramas. So if you want to join the club and get 3 extra months for free, well then head over to expressvpn.com/Gman and get started.